let's get started. Um, the last meeting, we saw the modern art movement before the avant-garde. So today we're gonna continue to see the modern art history today. So again, the modern art is divided as two: before avant-garde and after the avant-garde. In the last meeting, we learned before the avant-garde, some realism, impressionism, post-impressionism. Today, we are going to see the modern art movement after avant-garde, Fauvism, expressionism, cubism, futurism, Dada, and if we have enough time, we will see surrealism and idealism. So there are many art movements and artists. So let's see the avant-garde meaning first, before we see each art movements. Avant-garde was originally a military term referring to the detachment of soldiers that went first into battle. Avant-garde, which is a French term, means newest, latest, and the most advanced art. By the 1880s, the younger artists began to refer to themselves as the avant-garde. They went the boldest artists, going first uncharted territory and waiting for others to catch up. The newest and change became artistic ideal. Each generation, even each group believed it was their duty to go further than the one before. So the first art movement we are going to see is Fauvism. In 1904, the artists of the Salon d'Aurum organized a large exhibition of Cézanne, and in 1906, they mounted a major retrospective of Gauguin. But the most notorious exhibit of the Salon d'Aurum was the one they organized for themselves in 1905, and it was them that a critic dubbed them Fauves, wild beasts. The artist who emerged as the leader of this wild new trend in painting was Henri Matisse. So Matisse was a French artist. He was a draftsman, printmaker, and a sculptor, but he's known primarily as a painter. Matisse is commonly regarded, along with Pablo Picasso, as one of the artists who best helped to define the revolutionary developments in the visual arts throughout the opening decades of the 20th century, responsible for significant developments in painting and sculpture. So this is one of his famous painting, The Joy of Life. How do you think about the Fauvism painting, the Matisse painting? How does it look like?
It's kind of colorful.
Very colorful, yes. And what else?
I don't know if this is a thing, but kind of men in there.
Yeah.
Girls.
Very good. And technically, the artist is using the bold outline for the each figures to make them popped out. During his 5 years, Matisse often painted landscapes in the south of France during the summer and worked up ideas developed there into larger compositions upon his return to Paris. The Joy of Life, this painting, is the second of his important imaginary compositions, which is typical of this. He used a landscape and he had painted in Curlier to provide to setting for the idol, but it is also influenced by ideas drawn from Watteau, Pushkin, Japanese woodcuts, Persian, miniatures, and 19th century's Orientalist images of harems. The scene is made up of independent motifs arranged to form a complete composition. The massive painting and its shocking colors received mixed reviews at the Salon des Independents. The critics noted its new style, like broad fields of color and linear figures. And this is Henri Matisse' another painting, The Dance. So the final version of The Dance has a very different emotional character. It has been described as forbidding, menacing, tribal, ritualistic, even demonic, demonic. So drum beats almost seem to be heard as the simple pleasure of the original is overwhelmed. And the next art movement we are going to see is Expressionism. The Expressionism's fundamental purpose of art was to express their intense feeling toward the world. Expressionism describes any style where the artist's subjective feelings take precedence over object observation. So I will show you 2 artists of Impressionism. And this is the first artist, Edward Munch. Edward Munch is best known as being a Norwegian-born expressionist painter and printmaker. In the late 20th century, he played a great role in German expression, an art form that later followed, namely because of the strong mental anguish that was developed in many of the pieces that he created. So, have you ever seen this painting before as kind of famous painting? Yeah. So, so how does it look like? Or what kind of emotion you can feel through this painting?
Scary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Very.
Panicking kind of thing.
Very good. So Munch recalled that he had been out for a walk at sunset when suddenly the setting sunlight turned the clouds a blood red. He sensed an infinite scream passing through nature. So scholars have located the spot to a fjord overlooking Oslo and have suggested other explanations for the unnaturally orange color sky, ranging from the effects of volcanic eruption to a psychological reaction by Munch to his sister's commitment at a nearby lunatic asylum. And this is the next expressionist artist, Vasily Kandinsky. Vasily Kandinsky used to be a musician, so he was one of the pioneers of abstract modern art and exploit the evocative interrelation between color and form to create an aesthetic experience that emerged sight, sound, and emotions of the public. So his work of art looks very rhythmical and very musical. So this is it. So he believed the total abstraction offered the possibility for profound, transcendental expression, and that copying from nature only interferes with this process. And this is another his painting with geometric shapes and lines. Looks very rhythmical. Let's move on to the next art movement of modern art, Cubism. Cubism is a style of painting and sculpture developed in the early 20th century, characterized chiefly by an emphasis on formal structure, the reduction of natural forms to their geometrical equivalents, and the organization of the planes of represented object independently of representational requirements. So the most famous artist of Cubism is, everyone knows him, right? Pablo Picasso. Pablo Picasso is probably the most important figure of 20th century in terms of art and art movements that occurred over this period. Before the age of 50, the Spanish-born artist had become the most well-known name in modern art with the most distinct style and eye for artistic creation. So this is Pablo Picasso's very aggressive style of Cubism painting. So everyone, look at this painting closer. Can you guess what it is in this painting? Can you guess what the artist painted in this work of art?
I kind of see a body or broken pieces of a body.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh, Hakim, yes. How did you know it?
No, like to the right, kind of like I can't point, but that kind of looks like a leg. And
Mm-hmm.
looking in the middle, maybe this person's sitting down, but then it's like shoulders and like I just guess.
Ah, that's amazing. Okay, then here's one more thing. Okay, there is a person in the middle of the painting. And what is, he's holding something. Can you guess what it is? This is it. This one. He's
A
holding,
shovel?
huh?
A shovel?
Shovel. Oh, it's a musical instrument.
Oh, guitar.
Yes.
Okay, it was either between one or the other. Okay.
Yes, he's holding a guitar. Yes, very good. So Pablo Picasso painted a guitarist in this painting. The top part is a head, and this part is head, and this part is body. Very good. And this is guitar. So the artist simplified all the body parts and reorganized them in this painting. So I will share a video to see this painting in detail. 1 second. Mm-mm. All right.
We're in the Pompidou Center in Paris looking at a painting by Pablo Picasso called The Guitarist from 1910.
This is what is often referred to as analytic cubism.
Analytic in the idea of taking something apart, analyzing the parts of something, and you can see that those look like a jigsaw puzzle where the forms have been disassembled.
It's an abstraction.
The further we stand back from the painting, the more I can see the forms of a man, a head, shoulders, elbows, the fingerboard of the guitar.
Very exact hacking, yes.
The rounded forms of the outside of the guitar.
But I don't think that Picasso meant this to be a puzzle that we're supposed to put back together. Although Picasso is best known for abstracted paintings such as this, it's important to remember that Picasso was something of a child prodigy. He could draw in the academic style beautifully. For the previous 400 or 500 years, Western art had been preoccupied with naturalism, with representing the natural world as carefully and exactly as possible.
Representing the world as it appears to our eyes.
An artist developed a toolkit to do this. This included linear perspective,
Using light and shadow to create the illusion of three-dimensional form.
The problem that Picasso faced is that the modern world was one that felt ruptured. Old systems no longer felt valid.
The early 20th century is a time of tremendous upheaval. There is a sense that vision itself is unreliable.
Picasso was grappling specifically with the issue that painting was a kind of illusion, a representation of three-dimensional form and space on a two-dimensional surface.
A system of representation.
So could Picasso invent a new language for representation, but one that was not hiding the two-dimensionality of the canvas, but rather putting that in the forefront? So let's look closely at this painting and see if we can understand how Picasso has done this here. Picasso has simplified the human form.
We see diagonals, horizontals, vertical lines in black. We see circles that intersect.
But it's so abstracted that if we oriented it as if it were a landscape, we might expect to see the rooftops of a village instead of a man holding a guitar.
The fundamentals of perspective that governed Western painting for so long supposed a single viewer fixed in front of a work of art and showed us that view.
And Cézanne in the late 19th century had developed those ideas. Cézanne said, instead of standing in one place, looking from one point in space and time, I actually move around the thing that I'm painting.
Even if you don't move around it, what if you slightly turn your head to the right or to the left? The reality is that one's view is constantly changing and shifting.
And Picasso takes that idea.
Oops. So we just saw the Cézanne's painting, right? So he is a father of the modern art. So most of the modern artists was inspired by Cézanne's paintings.
That one's view is constantly changing and shifting.
And Picasso takes that idea and runs with it. What would happen if you represented this man holding a guitar over time from multiple perspectives?
That's a different kind of truth than the truth that Western painting had given us for 500 years.
So this is not less true, it's just differently true.
Picasso has also emptied the painting of much of its color.
And much of its content. We don't see hands, we don't see a face, we don't see emotion. The things that generally draw us into a painting of a person, what Picasso is interested in instead is the structural logic of the language that he's inventing. And he's inventing it not by himself, but with his compatriot George Braque.
And we still do have some illusion of space. There is a shallow relief here. We have light and shade. We have the movement between those pale tones and darker shadows. So there is a suggestion of a form there. This is not entirely flat, but it certainly is reminding us of the flatness of the canvas that this is painted on.
And as you said, he's reducing color so that we focus on line, on form, on mass, on structure. The colors are reduced to some browns and whites and blacks and perhaps some pale greens.
So we have light and shade that suggests three-dimensional form, and we have overlapping of shapes that also suggests depth.
But not deep space. This is a shallow space, maybe a few inches, just enough for the fractured forms that are represented. It's as if Picasso has taken a series of views of the human body and reconstructed them on the two-dimensional plane.
I find a tension between the title of the guitarist and the painting itself.
Without the title as a prompt, you'd be hard-pressed to locate the man or the guitar. This is a painting that is about the way that painting itself works. Picasso here is on the edge of abstraction, but this is not pure abstraction. It is not entirely divorced from the world that we see. Throughout his entire career, Picasso remained interested in the tension between what we see and the way in which we depict it.
All right. And let's see the next Pablo Picasso's painting. So this painting is, so famous and, very famous painting of Pablo Picasso. It's a large oil painting created in 1907 by Pablo Picasso. The work, which is a part of the permanent collection of the Museum of Modern Art, the MoMA, in the New York City. And it portrays 5 nude female prostitutes in a brothel on Avignon. So each figure is depicted in a disconcerting, confrontational manner, and none is conventionally feminine. The women appear slightly menacing and are rendered with angular and disjointed body shapes. The 3 figures on the left exhibit facial features in the Iberian style of the Pablo Picasso's native Spain, while the 2 on the right are shown with the African mask-like features. The racial primitivism evoked in these masks, according to Pablo Picasso, moved him to liberate an utterly original artistic style of compelling, even savage force. No, everyone knows this painting, Guernica, right? So on 26th April 1937, the Air Force of Nazi Germany bombed the Basque town of Guernica. The attack was carried out in support of General Franco's nationalist forces. It was one of the worst atrocities of the Spanish Civil War. Picasso responded to the massacre by painting a large anti-war, the mural Guernica, and he also made a number of additional paintings of a figure from the mural, a woman holding her dead child, and this weeping woman is the last of the series. The figure is based on artist and photographer Dora Maar, who documented and making of Guernica. So in 1914, the conflict broke out in the Balkan Peninsula. So soon as the result of treaties and alliances, every major power in Europe was drawn into war. So soldiers with their heads full of gallant ideas about battle rushed headlong into the most horrible death imaginable. So in 1916, a group of artists waiting out the war in Drag in neutral Switzerland banded together as a protest art movement called Dada. So Dada was anti-art, anti-middle class society, anti-politicians, anti-good manners, anti-business as usual, and anti all that had brought about war. In that sense, Dada was a big no, but Dada was also a big yes. Yes to creativity, to life, to silliness, to spontaneity. So we're gonna see more artworks based on the Dada's concept. So the Marcel Duchamp was a French-American painter, sculptor, chess player, and writer whose work is associated with Cubism, Dada, and conceptual art. So this work is widely regarded as a modernist classic and has become one of the most famous of its time. Before its first presentation at the 1912 Salon de l'Indépendance in Paris, it was rejected by the Cubists as being too futurist. And these are ready-made work. We learned that before. So the ready-made of Marcel Duchamp was ordinary manufactured objects that the artist selected and modified as an antidote to what he called retinal art, sorry. So by simply choosing the object or objects and repositioning or joining, titling, and singing it, the found objects became art. So we're gonna stop right here. We have two more artworks to see, the surrealism and the idealism. Yes, so we're gonna continue to see the rest of two art movement in the modern era. And we have a discussion related to this chapter. Oh, so after this meeting, please everyone watch the videos. Basically, we just learned Fauvism, right? And Expressionism, and Edward Munch and Vasily Kandinsky and the Pablo Picasso's work. We just watched it together, and Marcel Duchamp's video. And you don't need to watch these two surrealism, idealism videos, but please watch these 1, 2, 3, 4 videos after this meeting. And yes, Anna.
No, I was just gonna ask you a question about the discussion portion. Can you go there?
Oh, which one?
The discussion question.
The expressionism?
Discussion question.
Oh, the discussion. All right, so this is the discussions topic.
Yeah, so I was saying it says two trends, but it has more than two videos. So which one is it talking about?
So that means is, it said, let me just, share the lecture slide again. So everyone, let me just read today's discussion topic. The modern art is divided as two big threads by avant-garde. By avant-garde is the point. So what's the differences and why are they different? So we learned that in the last meeting. Oops. So this, we saw this time period, and there is an avant-garde, art movement, and I said before the art movement before the avant-garde and the art movement after the avant-garde are totally different, right? Yes. So in the beginning of the modern art period, means before the avant-garde, the photographers technique was still a baby step. So most of artists saw to the observational work of art. On the other hand, after the avant-garde, they don't need to make the recording work of art. So they saw to new style of art, like so like the diverse artworks, Fauvism, Expressionism, Cubism, Futurism.
Oh, so
Yes.
this is the before and this is the after.
Yes. So looks
Okay.
like after avant-garde, very abstract, right? Based on the abstract art, but the before the avant-garde art movement looks like, still based on the observational art. So that's the huge difference. So that is the topic for the today's discussion. So
Okay, thank you.
I just answered almost the everything. But yes, that is the point. So the point is the avant-garde. Okay, so for this meeting, everyone please go to the 12.2 page to watch these first 4 videos, and then please complete the discussion 12.2 by tonight.